Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. Intesar-e-Wilayat Ch-3. Address number 3. Wilaya of the Age. O Nasreen Wali-ul-Asr. Today is our third discussion on this topic. As you can see, we are busy in proving that Wali-ul-Asr are 3 in number. 1. Allah Almighty. 2. The Holy Prophet. 3. The Imam who is natik or practical inactive is called Wali-ul-Asr. But if we consult hadith, we come to know that Wali-ul-Asr are 2 in number instead of 3. The first Wali is Allah Almighty Himself, and the second one is Prophet Muhammad and his progenies. We have already discussed that Allah Almighty is the ultimate Wali of Prophet Muhammad and his progenies, and Prophet Muhammad and his progenies are our Wali-ul-Asr. The lives of Muhammad and his progenies serve as a lesson of true religion for us. Thus, by adopting an attitude towards his Wali-ul-Asr, he taught us to have the same attitude toward our Wali-ul-Asr. He also delivered a strong message that we must not shirk from offering sacrifices for our Wali-ul-Asr as he did for his Wali-ul-Asr. Friends, at the beginning of Islam, this religion of Nusra was being practiced, but it was not openly practiced then. However, it had been revealed long ago that none of our attitude with Allah Almighty is directly permissible. But our attitude towards our Wali-ul-Asr determines our attitude towards Allah Almighty. It has also been proved that whatever we do to prove our allegiance to Allah and offer maximum sacrifices to Allah Almighty by superseding our Wali-ul-Asr will finally be wasted. We can observe in practical implication in the battles of Safin and Nahrawan, as on both sides there were long rows of those who used to offer prayers. There were worshippers on both sides. Nahrawani Khawarij, those who were excluded from the sphere of Islam, was very fond of offering prayers. On both sides of the battlefield, the slogan of Allahu Akbar, Allah is great, was being raised. Memorizers of the Holy Quran were present on both sides. But one of the two groups was on the right and the other one was on the wrong. Those attached with their Wali-ul-Asr, that is Amir-e-Kainat, were certainly just, and those trying directly to win over Allah Almighty by superseding their Wali-ul-Asr were wrong and consequently were condemned to hell. Khawarij were also branding this battle as jihad for the sake of Allah. They were as blunt to impose religious injunctions and prohibitions as the Taliban. But in Nahjul Balagha, Amir-e-Kainat says about Khawarij that when Lucifer gets disappointed with the sin and disobedience of the people, he puts them in the worship of the ignorant. In other words, as Satan gets assured that the follower will not deviate from the true path, for example, he will not commit sexual corruption or get involved in stealing, Satan gets him assured that only prayers is enough to win over Allah and faith is no more required. Not only that, even a grudge against Wali-ul-Asr makes no difference. Cognition of Wali-ul-Asr is not preferable to worship of Allah. Friends, what is Sabil Allah, or in the name of Allah? It stands for Wali-ul-Asr and his path. Whatever is done for his sake is called Fi Sabilillah, or in the name of Allah. Contrary to it, whatever we do while bypassing our Wali-ul-Asr would be in the name of Satan. Friends, it is important to note that there are two aspects of the concept of Wilayat-e-Asr. 1. Theoretical cum ideological dimension. 2. Practical cum painful dimension. The first aspect is as much important as the second one. First of all, it is essential to strengthen the theoretical and ideological aspects of the concept of Wilayat-e-Asr. There must be a firm resolution in our faith that Wali-ul-Asr is no other than Allah among us, but is the physical embodiment of that invisible and indefinite being. To sacrifice our lives and possessions for the sake of our Wali-ul-Asr is in fact to sacrifice for the sake of Allah Almighty. His Nusra stands for the Nusra of Allah. To swear allegiance to Wali-ul-Asr is to swear allegiance to Allah Almighty. Allah is the conscience or inner self of Wali-ul-Asr, and Wali-ul-Asr is the manifestation of Allah Almighty. So, to make others understand, we can say that Wali-ul-Asr, in the physical embodiment of Allah Almighty, is His Supreme Soul. Thus, the attitude that we have toward the Supreme Soul will also be adopted by the body. It means, whosoever offends the physical embodiment also offends the Supreme Soul. Similarly, whosoever adores the physical embodiment also adores the Supreme Soul. And whosoever develops a hatred for the physical embodiment slays it and is considered the slayer of the Supreme Soul. Whosoever dares abuse the physical embodiment, in fact abuses the Supreme Soul. Negation of the physical embodiment is in fact negation of the very Supreme Soul. Finally, whosoever is found negligent of offering Nusra to his Wali-ul-Asr is branded as negligent of offering Nusra to Allah Almighty. Friends, until and unless we develop firm faith in this universal reality, we will never be able to perceive the will of Allah Almighty and true faith. Even if it becomes understandable, it cannot be practiced correctly. Therefore, it is imperative to strengthen the theoretical and ideological aspects of faith. If we critically look at the events of history, we come to know that those whose theoretical aspect of faith was crystal clear practiced religion wholeheartedly, and those who considered Wali-ul-Asr as their immediate God could firmly offer Nusra, and those who could develop the only imperfect concept of Nusra remained deprived or were left far behind in performing the act of Nusra. Here, the theological and ideological aspect of faith is not under discussion, but only the practical aspect is being discussed. Friends, the theory has already been practiced that Nusra of Wali-ul-Asr is the Nusra of Allah Almighty. Our attitude with Allah Almighty will not be measured up, but with our Wali-ul-Asr. Our Wali-ul-Asr is our criteria and standards. This theory already existed, but after the demise of the last prophet, it gradually began to disappear. And in the time of the accursed Yazid, this ideology completely disappeared. The throne of power grabbed the rank of Wilayat-e-Asr. In other words, the throne of power was set up as an alternative to the rank of Wilayat-e-Asr. And the narrative was established that whosoever seizes the chair of the government, irrespective of the fact whether he is elected or nominated by the other, or with the help of so-called wise counsel, or by some unfair means, is the deputy of Allah Almighty. Allah forbids, and his obedience is in fact the obedience of Allah Almighty. Allah forbids. Muslim bin Akbamari is that damn person who plundered sacred Medina and set the pulpit of the Holy Prophet on fire. Not only that, 1,000 virgin daughters of the companions of the Holy Prophet gave birth to illegitimate babies as a result of the misdoings of this very cursed Muslim bin Akba. He did not stop here and set the house of Allah, Qibla, on fire. He was also the hero of the incident of Hira, the worst in history. This accursed man had said at the time of his death that he was so evil-minded that he had no hope of salvation after his death. Further, he said that he might pin hope of being blessed with heaven, escaping the burning fire of hell just because of a single act of goodness. When Akbar was asked what was the virtue that gave him hope of salvation, he answered that he followed his master, the accursed Yazid, blindly destroyed Medina, didn't care about the sanctity of the Prophet's mosque, that is Masjid-e-Nabawi, and even put the house of Allah on fire. And his allegiance to his accursed master might result in his forgiveness. In those times, the throne of power became the yardstick of the religious leaders of the people, and allegiance to the existing government was considered allegiance to Allah Almighty. Finally, the authentic and divine system of Wilayat-e-Asr was replaced by this spurious system, and the rugged spell of this invalid system was broken only by a handful of Janissaries on the land of exalted Karbala. The Prophet of Hind, Khaja Moinuddin Chishti, pays tribute to Karim-e Karbala in these words: Shah ast Hussain, Badshah ast Hussain. Karim-e Karbala is the king, Karim-e Karbala is the monarch. Deen hast Hussain, Deen Panah hast Hussain. Karim-e Karbala is the religion, Karim-e Karbala is the only one who gives shelter to religion. Sardad na dad, dast dar daste Yazid. He sacrificed his sacred head, but he did not give his hand to the hand of accursed Yazid. Hakka ke binae la ilah hast Hussain. For this reason, Karim-e Karbala is the basis of La Ilah. Khaja Sahab has branded Binae La Ilah, the basis of La Ilah, as to enliven the system of Wilayat-e-Asr. Further, he swore by Allah Almighty that the foundation of La ilaha illallah is also Karim-e Karbala, the very Kalma-e Tayyaba, the foundation of which was laid by the Holy Prophet, was breathing its last at 60 Hijrah approached. It was enlivened again by the Janissaries of Karbala. It is an undeniable fact that the true faith in Islam got its lost soul in Karbala Mualla, and this true faith is ever living in Karbala. जाफिर कभी इस्लाम पे मौत आ नहीं सकती. Murshid Kareem Sayyid Jafar-uz-Zaman Naqvi al-Bukhari says that Islam can never be outdated. Islam ki shahrag mein shaheedon ka lahu hai. The blood of the martyrs runs through the aorta of Islam. The martyrs are indeed everlasting. The blood of the martyrs runs through the veins of Islam. How can such a religion die that has grown up with the sacred blood of the martyrs? Here the question arises of which religion has been enlivened by the emissaries of Karbala. The short and comprehensive answer to this question is that they have enlivened the concept of Wilayat-e-Asr. They have perpetuated the religion of Nusra of Wali-ul-Asr. They have revived the religion of Nusra of Imam of the age, because a true faith ultimately leads to the Nusra of Wali-ul-Asr. Friends, Karbala is the largest university of religion and the largest seminary of the Islamic faith in the world. Karbala is the largest institution of the true religion of Nusra. It is the mainstream practical approach and an everlasting lesson for the next coming generations. Not only that, Karbala is the eternal abode of the concept of Wilayat-e-Asr. Friends, Karbala is a guidebook, a test paper, a work manual for every upcoming Karbala. The mystic's vision of seeing reality and the language of telling the truth perceive this fact and also declare that Karbala can be approached in two different ways. 1. Outward or external approach. 2. Intrinsic or spiritual approach. Here, again the question arises, what is an outward or external approach towards Karbala? Friends, we have been hearing for the last 1400 years that Cream-e-Karbala left Medina and finally reached Karbala Mualla, and an imperishable tale of martyrdoms was written on the soil of Karbala. Then the Karwan of Nasiran-e-Tawheed left for Kufa and Syria. There the Karwan stayed for a considerable time and then came back to Medina. This travel from Medina to Medina is called the outward or external approach towards Karbala. Now another question arises, what is the intrinsic or spiritual approach towards Karbala? In fact, intrinsic or spiritual Karbala started even 60 years before outward or external Karbala and is still going on. 1400 years have passed, but this unique Karbala is still scattered before us. Let's have a comparative study of both outward and intrinsic Karbala. 1. That was outward or external Karbala, and this is intrinsic or spiritual Karbala. 2. Outward or external Karbala occurred during the specified period, while intrinsic or spiritual Karbala is consistent and perpetual. 3. Outward or external Karbala was meant for 1 year, while intrinsic or spiritual Karbala encompasses centuries. 4. Outward or external Karbala occurred in a specified area, while intrinsic or spiritual Karbala bears witness that the whole world is just one Karbala. 5. Outward or external Karbala was for a limited number of days, while intrinsic or spiritual Karbala testifies to the fact that every day is a day of Ashura, that is the 10th of Muharram. 6. Outward or external Karbala was textual, while intrinsic or spiritual Karbala is based on the trial. The example of outward or external Karbala is like that of a teacher asking a child to pronounce the first letter A, and the child follows the instructions by saying A. It means the teacher first demonstrates by pronouncing the first letter A or shows it by writing on the whiteboard. After that, the children have to write and speak it again and again. Similarly, in a parent Karbala, people irrespective of color, caste, creed, age, and profession were awarded representation in outward or external Karbala. And examples were also quoted relating to these people so that any aspect of true religion may not remain in darkness in front of future generations. For example, examples relating to age. Young boys and girls, old men and women, blooming girls and boys, and infants. 2. Examples relating to family. Married woman, unmarried woman, widows, widowers, newly married, etc. 3. Examples relating to relations of womankind. Mothers of youths, sons and daughters, slaves, aged men, enemies, Sayyid woman. Sisters of youth, boys and girls, slaves and aged men, Sayyid woman, enemies. Wives of young men, slaves, amirs, aged men, Sayyid woman, enemies. Daughters of young men, slaves, amirs, aged men, Sayyid woman, enemies. 4. Examples relating to relations of men. Fathers of youth, girls and boys, slaves, aged men. Father of a young son, teenage son, the enemy of his imprisoned son, Bashar bin Umro Hazarmi. Brothers of young men, girls and boys, slaves, aged men. Sons of aged mothers, widow mothers, orphans, young men, old men, teenage children, slaves, free men, and aged fathers. Husbands of newly married woman, aged woman, young woman. 5. Examples of other relations: parental aunts and uncles, maternal aunts and uncles, brother's wife, husband's sister, parental grandson, maternal grandson and granddaughter, nephew, niece, maternal grandmother and maternal grandfather, paternal grandmother and paternal grandfather, paternal uncle, paternal aunt, maternal uncle, maternal aunts. 6. Social status: male, freeman, slaves, chief, public official, government minister, advisor, boss, poor, soldier, policeman, general, relations with enemy, guest, passenger, host, inviter, businessman, non-Muslim, stranger, handicapped. 7. Social status: female, free, housekeeper, boss, public, servant, official, government minister, advisor, poor, soldier, policeman, general, relations with enemy, guest, passenger, host, inviter, businessman, non-Muslim, stranger, handicapped. 8. The ethnic: male and female, Arabic, non-Arab, the black, the white, agnate, non-agnate, Sayyid. Friends, if we multiply these 8 references with each other, they make 64 digits according to the fundamentals of humanity. If we add also sub-references found in these 64 references, there will be a total of 22,500 sub-references. Now it is proved that 22,500 kinds of humans are found in any society. If we add many sub-references to each type of human being and professions are given a separate place in them, there would be billions of types of human beings. If we observe the world from the referential point of view, there will be billions of types of human beings. And if we minutely observe the events of Karbala Mualla, we are amazed to know that all the expected references and sections of humanity on this planet till the day of judgment were very beautifully represented in Karbala. While the number of those who were martyred in Karbala is 144, the total number of martyred persons during the travel of Karbala is 313. You have seen that all the spheres of human life, or as many references as possible, are represented in Karbala. Now the question arises, what were the reasons behind giving these representations? A universal message has been delivered on the land of Karbala for all the generations till the day of judgment. It's as if Karbala was the model school for the religion of the progenies of Hazrat Muhammad, including model students and model teachers, and they have given such a comprehensive lesson that the next coming generations can avail and adopt the true religion by studying on Karbala Mualla instead of going through heavy and thick books. Friends, if a person completely irrespective of whatever he is, in whatever condition he is, in whatever status he is, and whatever position he is in, wants to perceive the true religion by staying in his place, and if he wants to know his duties to follow them, seeking the pleasure of Allah Almighty and the sacred family, then he must look for such a man in the book of Karbala who was representing people like him in that place. Then if he mirrors the actions of that blessed person and follows them strictly, he too will attain the high position which that blessed man has already attained in Karbala Mualla. Karbala offers millions of models which can be practiced in our practical life. There we find successful as well as unsuccessful persons. We can learn lessons from the unsuccessful persons by giving up the bad characteristics found in them, lest we should slip away from the true path. Similarly, we can also learn a lesson from successful persons by adopting their good deeds with the least chances of failure. Friends, earlier I mentioned two kinds of Karbala: outward or external Karbala and intrinsic or spiritual Karbala. It was earlier explained that outward and external Karbala was that about which we have been listening for the last 14 centuries, but intrinsic or spiritual Karbala is continuing. At every age, intrinsic or spiritual representation of every character of Karbala remains there. As we know that the character of Karbala is present in the form of every Wali-ul-Asr. All the Imams are in fact Karbala in their respective ages, because their sacred heads were decorated with the same turban of prophethood that Karbala has got on his sacred head. That is the same divine light, same grandeur, same splendor, same designation. There is no difference between them relating to the matters of status or relating to the matters of concerning creation. If there exists a difference that is only of time and place, it would be more accurate to say that the difference was based on the people belonging to different ages. Outwardly, Karbala was limited with reference to time and geography. In other words, Karbala was a demonstration regarding time and space. It happened at a specified time and a specified place. Karbala occurred in the presence of particular people and was performed by particular people. But this intrinsic or spiritual Karbala is free from the concept of time and space. That is, if someone wants to become Hazrat Hur at any age, he can be. And anyone can become Ibn Hur Jafar, the damned one, if he wants to. Everybody can be Hazrat Trimma bin Adi of his age, and at the same time, he can be Trimma bin Hakam. The only thing is that whoever has played the role of any person of Karbala with his Wali-ul-Asr will get the same end and result as that person of Karbala. It is written in Hadith, if anyone becomes the portrait of some race or tribe, or if he bears a close resemblance to that race or tribe, he will be adjudged the member of that race or tribe. Similarly, if someone bears a resemblance with some character of Karbala, he will become a member of that place of martyrdom. This intrinsic or spiritual Karbala still continues even in our age. The saying of Imam Zainul Abidin may be quoted here as he says, for the believer, every day is the day of Ashura and every piece of land is the land of Karbala. Wherever a believer may be physically, he must consider himself in Karbala and must consider every day as the day of Ashura. He must consider his Wali-ul-Asr as Imam-e-Mazloom, that is, Karbala. And after that, he must recognize his duties of what would be his attitude towards his real honor. Only then he may be blessed with the same status equal to the martyrs of Karbala. All we have to do is to find out our position first, and after that, when we look at the role of our position and place in the book of Karbala, we will find two different characters on that position and place. That is, either the role of a friend or that of an enemy. Then we can easily decide for ourselves what role we should play or how we should act. If we play the role of a friend, Allah Almighty will also shower His blessings on us. And if we play the role of an enemy, we will be cursed by both Allah Almighty and angels. The main thing is to fulfill the rights of our honor and duties within the scope of our position. First step. Friends, after realizing our position with special reference to Karbala, we first perceive the strong feeling of estrangement. We come to know that we are estranged from our emperor of the era, as the inhabitants of Kufa first realize that they have been alienated from their Imam. And this separation is disastrous and misguidedness in itself, and they took the very first step that must have been taken at any cost. The first ideal step that a believer must take is to develop contact with his Wali-ul-Asr and to call him for guidance and graciousness so that he may be blessed with his nusra and injunction and may also be saved from eternal damnation and honored with the fruits of the world and hereafter. A believer must put his maximum efforts to develop his connection with his Wali-ul-Asr and take inspiration to obey orders and perform his duties. Then he must act the injunctions given by Wali-ul-Asr full solemnly. After that, if he slightly gets non-serious, he will have to face disastrous consequences like those of Kufi. But if he remains steadfast and focuses on reforming his character, he will enjoy the result like those of Ansars who achieved great gifts in offering unconditional nusra. Here we have to turn to the lesson of Karbala to find admonition for us in the light of Kufi's attitude towards their Wali-ul-Asr. Zu-Khashab is a burning desert with a mountain to the east. At the foot of this mountain are the tents of a caravan. There are rows of prayers on the warm ground in front of these tents. And the Zohar prayers have just ended, but the worshippers are sitting in their respective places. After the prostration of thanksgiving, Karim-e-Karbala turns to the worshippers sitting in front of him. Then he gets up with the help of his sword. These people sitting there are none other than Hazrat Hur's companion, Saki-e-Kausar, has just given them a new life by offering drinking water. Because he did not want the death of the enemy to interfere with the divine destiny. The whole army is watching as the emperor stands with the help of the sword and wants to say something. Karim-e-Karbala took a quick look at all the people and started his famous sermon. He first praised Allah Almighty and then his sacred ancestor, the Holy Prophet and his sacred progenies. Then he addresses the army in front of him. O those who are present here, I apologize to Allah Almighty regarding your coming here and tell you why you are here. We were not intended to come here, but we started traveling with incessant messengers, came to me and insisted on my coming here. Every time you repeatedly write that you do not have Imam and are roaming aimlessly without Imam. You further wrote that the government of unchaste and sinful Yazid has been imposed on you, and if I came to rescue you, Allah Almighty would unite you under His guidance. You invited us in the hope that Allah Almighty will bless you with His guidance. You made solemn pledges with us and assured us with Nusra. If you keep up your pledges and confirmations, we will enter the city accompanying you. If our arrival seems unfavorable to you, we are ready to go back. General idea of the address. Dear readers, here there are many addresses of the Imam-e-Kainat, that is the address he delivered after Zohar prayers, at the time of Asr prayers, and even after Asr prayers. He addressed the Lashkar-e-Hazrat-e-Hur on many occasions. The central idea of these addresses was that he was called by them because they said they were moving astray without Imam and they wanted the sovereignty of truthfulness. It was they who assured him of Nusra. It was they who said if Karim-e-Karbala did not come to rescue them, he would be responsible for their consent to disbelief and polytheism. Furthermore, if he did not come for guidance, tomorrow they would seize his robe. They also said that their future in life after death was being ruined and finally they were being damned. Only the timely arrival of Karim-e-Karbala could save them from the clutches of unchaste Yazid. As the Kufis completed their arguments, he also came there for the same purpose. Karim-e-Karbala further said, if his visit was unpleasant for all of them, he would go back. On hearing this, Hazrat Hur said, "O my Lord, neither I wrote any letter, nor do I know that letters were written to you." On hearing this, the oppressed Imam asked Aqba bin Saman to take the bag filled with those letters written by Kufis. As the bag was released before Hazrat Hur, he was wonderstruck to see the attitude of the Kufis. Lesson of accountability. Friends, recently a conscious man got an inspirational indication to telecast and publish the dialogue between Karim-e-Karbala and Hazrat Hur, and the addresses Karim-e-Karbala delivered on that occasion. As he discussed the case with me, it showed me the way to self-criticism and self-accountability. I felt that this event contained a lesson for those who really love the emperor of the era, and it is ordained to reveal the hidden implications of that lesson properly to all. It was intended to provide awareness of the event to those praying and waiting for the advent of the Imam of the era, so that they may judge themselves from the perspective of this event. In fact, they are paying only lip service like the Kufis, which is not accompanied by practicality. They are also saying, "Ajjalallahu farajak," and praying for his early reappearance. Some people also pray for the early reappearance of the emperor of the era. In their application, they write on the night of Nimai Shaban, or the 15th of the Islamic month of Shaban, they request, 1. O Lord, we pray your majesty to reappear soon. 2. O Lord, we pray your majesty to come soon because we are leading a life sans Imam. 3. O Lord, we pray your majesty to come soon so that we may get deliverance from the tyrant's rule. 4. O Lord, we pray your majesty to come soon so that the rule of the rightful and lawful may be established. 5. O Lord, we pray your majesty to come soon because we are distressed at the hands of the tyrants. 6. O Lord, we pray your majesty to come soon because we are being damned to hell. Now we can easily compare ourselves with Kufis because we are also calling our Imam in the manner the Kufis used to call Karim-e-Karbala. In our Dua-e-Tajil-e-Farj, prayer for the early reappearance of Wali-ul-Asr is now similar to those thousands of letters written by Kufis. Now on this occasion, we must ask our conscience whether we are fully prepared for Nusra. Critical analysis of Kufis. Friends, it would be proper to critically analyze the behavior of the Kufis so that we can examine our conscience in this mirror. If we critically analyze the inhabitants of Kufis, we can categorize the Kufis into 4 kinds, out of which 2 groups were enemies while the other 2 were friends. The accursed Yazidi group was branded as the enemy group because it did not want the arrival of Karim-e-Karbala in Kufa. The second group of enemies comprised the people who were repeatedly writing letters to Karim-e-Karbala. They were not in search of the true path, but they were in fact teased by the Umayyi lobby, or they were deprived of the appreciation and conferment of the Umayyis. They were seeking their power and dominance in giving favor to Karim-e-Karbala. They were calling Karim-e-Karbala for the sake of their worldly benefits, as was quite evident in the narrative of their letters. They demanded the immediate arrival of Karim-e-Karbala, saying that seasonal fruit was ripe, crop was ready to be harvested, and people were wealthy. Simply, they wanted to take possession of the people in the form of Mal-e-Ghanimat, wealth and possessions which are collected from the enemies after winning the battle, because they were just crazy after worldly possessions. The third category belonged to those who were calling Karim-e-Karbala for the safety of this material world and hereafter. They were calling Karim Karbala because they needed Imam-e-Haq or genuine Imam who could liberate them from hell. That's why they strongly desired the immediate arrival of the worshipful emperor. The fourth group comprised the people who did have faith in Mullah Karim, but they did not want to let their daily and business routine get spoiled with the arrival of Mullah Karim, that is Karim Karbala. They defended the status quo and did not favor the arrival of Mullah Karim. They shuddered from the thought that their children would be orphans and wives would be widows because the arrival of Mullah Karim would mean a battle with a defined people. That's why they were not comfortable with the arrival of Mullah Karim. As some of the high-ups among the Shiites thought that Karim Karbala should not have come to Kufa because they had hardly got an office in the court and got powers and honor in the government. They believed that Kufa was being run smoothly and the arrival of Karim Karbala would lead to bloodshed, children would be orphaned and homes would be ruined. Somebody said that Karim Karbala might come to Kufa after the celebrations of his daughter's marriage. Some others quoted Ibn Ziyad as a tyrant and fighting against him would put the honor of their young daughters at stake. These are all the opinions given by the high-ups among the Shiites that have been taken from different books. One group of the enemy did not want his arrival in Kufa. Similarly, unfortunate people under the guise of friends and believers also discouraged his arrival. But one group of the enemy wanted Karim Karbala to come so that they could catch the arrival and get some powers and worldly possessions. If we analyze the present state of affairs with those of Kufa, we come to know that countless people believe in the emperor of the era, but they are divided in 4 groups like those existing in Kufa. Even today, a group of the enemy does not want the arrival of the Wali-ul-Asr. Similarly, a very large group of foreigners want presently arrival of the Lord of the universe so that the Muslims may rule over America and Europe. They nourish the hope of getting the rule of some country. Similarly, Shiites are also divided into 2 groups on this matter. One group seems to say that time is not yet ripe for the arrival of the emperor of the universe as they are enjoying and fully absorbed in the pleasures of life. If the emperor of the universe came, they would have to offer sacrifices. Their homes would be destroyed and minimized by the system of justice. Rather, the sword of Imam al-Muntazir might also slaughter them. Further, their dominance, powers, wealth and properties will be slipped from their hands. Their lewdness and luxuries will be transformed into bloodshed and orphanhood. The arrival of the emperor of the era would be no less than the day of judgment, which must be delayed as soon as possible. Those Shiites who are enjoying wealth, powers and worldly flavors of life wanted to delay, Allah forbids, the arrival of the emperor of the age. The 4th group consists of sincere people who are wholeheartedly awaiting the arrival of Wali-ul-Asr. But there is no need to say what their number is and what percentage of the total population they are. But some are unfamiliar with the consequences. They think that after his arrival, he himself would manage the affairs like drawing a sword against the enemies, devastating them, and miraculously winning the war. They think they would enjoy their share of delights, cheerfulness, and powers without involving efforts and offering sacrifices, because those offering unconditional nusra would be accompanying Wali-ul-Asr and they have to do nothing. I would earnestly request those player seekers that it is we who are to lay sacrifices to establish the eternal rule of our emperor of the age. That's why we are directed in ziyarat and adiyah to pray like this: O Creator, enable us to obtain the zenith of martyrdom in the Nusra of the Emperor of the era, and that we may offer sacrifices of our lives happily with least dissatisfaction. Similarly, it has been told that those 7 or 700 or 7,000 sacrificers martyred in the Nusra of the Emperor of the age will be rewarded equally to the martyrs of the Battle of Badr. It is evident from this narration that the believers have to offer unconditional sacrifices in the Nusra of Wali-ul-Asr. Now we should think, if we are mentally prepared for sacrifice, whatever it may be for the sake of the Emperor of the age, we seem to pray day and night for his egress. But the question arises whether our invitation is like that of Kufis or not. Friends, our whole system has gone out of order, suffering from unrest and waywardness, and we are going to hell. That's why we have to offer sacrifices. Maulai Kainat's rule is eternal and will stay everlasting. Whether he formally reappears or not, it makes no difference, but we are suffering from loss. If His Majesty arrives, he will come to reform our corrupt system, liberates us from the clutches of this cruel system, and finally bring us under the rule of truth and guidance. What benefit the Emperor of the age may get out of this except the benefits and blessings which he will shower on us? Now the question arises, if ever we have thought about what loss we are suffering from, another question arises, if we are really suffering, and what protective measures we are taking to avoid this damage. When we are calling for the early reappearance of the Emperor of the age, are we really prepared for Nusra? Or our attitude would resemble those of Kufis who themselves implored him to come. But instead of supporting him, they got terrified by the enemy, confined themselves in their homes to save their lives and possessions, and ultimately landed the Emperor of the age amid untold predicaments. At the same time, we must also consult our conscience to determine whether we are fully prepared for the arrival of the Emperor of the age, whom we are calling earnestly. We must look into the sayings regarding the reappearance of the Emperor of the age and undergo the process of self-accountability, as is the saying, when the Emperor of the era finally arrives, so many so-called representatives of Sharia, hidden in the guise of scholarly appearance, will request the Emperor of the era, "O darling of the Queen of the universe, you are requested to retreat from where you have come, because you are no more required here." Now we are required to think repeatedly if we have ever felt the dire need of our Emperor of the universe. Apparently, we have got the timely solutions to all the worldly problems. For example, hospitals are there to cure the patients. MNAs and MPAs are there to solve the issues of the courts. So-called and desired fatwas are available to solve the confusion in religion. Not only that, Sayers is saying the whole religion and faith is available in black and white in the books of religion, and there is no need of the arrival of the Emperor of the universe. Friends, we should again and again undergo the process of self-analysis and self-accountability. If the process does indicate our affiliation and devotion to our Emperor of the universe, we should thank Allah Almighty. And if the process does indicate the inner barrenness of your soul, we are spiritually barren if not affiliated with our Wali-ul-Asr. We must consult him, because only the prayer for his egress and preparation of his arrival can fertile the bony and unproductive souls. We must remember that even after death, we have to be produced in his court. Even death would be no escape. That's why we must purify our thinking of any Kufian school of dirty thought if exists any, and sincerely prepare ourselves for sacrifice, whatever it may be, including life, family, possessions, and finally invoke his reappearance ardently. In the last, I will pray for the immediate reappearance of our Emperor of the age, and may Allah Almighty bless all the believers, mourners, and lamenters with the nusra of the Emperor of the age. Ameen. Ya Rabbal Alameen. Alhamdulillah wa shukra sahib zaman. Ajjalallahu farajahu sharif.